Hi. Now everyone has to listen to me. My name is Karl Korsar. I've been working as a print designer for the last 15 years now. And I must say I changed things with this, right? Yeah. I've been working in this industry for the last 15 years and things have changed quite rapidly, I must say. Digital printing has democratized design. Big words, I know, but let me try to explain to you what this means. Digital tools in general have democratized design. I think with digital printing, a lot more designers have the capability of producing very unique pieces and small quantities. But also digital tools as online stores and so on help smaller brands reach a wider audience and sell their stuff directly to customers. Even within this 15 years that I've worked in this industry, I've seen how the shift has changed for smaller designers to have an opportunity to sell on big markets. But I'll go on like this. So digital printing, what do I mean by this? So there's two things. There's the technology of printing. So this is what our previous speaker just talked about. And then the other aspect of this, creating artwork using digital tools. So Photoshop, Procreate, Illustrator. There's more and more of these things that we use in our daily lives to create patterns that can be then transferred onto garments, and then products can be made out of these things. And this has definitely changed quite a lot. And it's very exciting because I think with digital tools, making patterns with digital tools, you can venture out and try out different inspiration sources. So when sort of like classical printing had its own limitations, with digital printings you don't have to do repeats and so on, and that makes your life a lot easier. So I'm going to brag a little bit about myself. So what do I do? So what does a surface designer do? So the first thing is I make prints for other brands. So I work with an agency in Stockholm that sells prints to other big brands. So how this works is that I produce X amount of prints every day. I used to work as a surface designer in London many years ago. So then we had to make 6 prints a day, and those prints are then sold to big fashion houses. Some of you have probably been to a textile fair. You see when they just... So yeah, that's exactly what I was doing. It's not very creative in terms of my own personal freedom, but I think as a designer, it's very crucial that you understand that you have your own style, but at the same time, you need to do what the mass market needs. And this is exactly what I teach at the Estonian Academy of Arts as well, is that you need to suppress your own need to press your own ideas through and really see what the market wants. So if you work as a print designer, you have to do floral designs really well. So I think there's no way around it. I think about 80% of the prints that I make is floral. And I think it's also within that tiny little space, there's a lot of room to improvise as well. So it's not just, we call them grandma florals, which is this very classical floral print. You'll see what I've done later on. So then print work for my own collections for the last 9 years now. I've had my own clothing, furniture, rug company. So I pretty much make everything you can make out of fabric from. And this gives me a bit more flexibility of what in terms of print sizes and color schemes, and it's a lot more exciting, at least for me. And I must say, 9 years ago is a very different game. Having access to fabrics and what I was capable of printing on compared to now. I think when I started printing, it was really hard to find producers that have the right sort of materials that I need. Obviously now the quantities are a lot bigger that I work with, so I have access to a lot more different fibers to print on. And then teaching, and this is actually something that's really close to my heart. I really enjoy the teaching aspect of it, because I think through this you can also learn a lot. I teach at the Academy of Arts, but also private workshops. Some people have actually been in my workshop before, so it's really nice to see that they're here. Okay. So yeah, print work for other brands. So for the last 5 years, I've been working with an agency in Stockholm that sells prints to, a lot of it goes to the H&M group because they have a very big assortment of brands, first of all, and also they make a lot of collections. So they buy in a big quantity of prints. So how this works is that you make prints, but you don't, if any of you use the Photoshop, you have different layers. So you don't glue them all together, but you have separate elements. So if you sell a print to this brand, they have the right to move things around as ever they see fit for their product. So they can make it smaller or bigger. So one of them is for H&M, I think, and the other one is for other stories. But yeah, it's really interesting because you work with these prints and you make them, they look alike, so it's really hard to tell whether this was your print or someone else's. But yeah, there's a little bit of room for creativity as well. So they printed on silks and then they offered to these brands. It's not very creative, but it pays really well. So yeah, as well as producing, so this is not textile, the bottom one, but working with digital tools, you actually can make some really interesting also boxes, accessories. So what I do is that usually we have a company coming in, whether it was National Geographic or this Joik, which is a Estonian cosmetics brand, that they come in and they're like, okay, we have a color scheme and certain elements that we would like to use. Can you make us whether it's packaging or scarves and stuff like this? So I come up with an idea and then we produce mostly textile products out of them. And this is a really fun thing to do because it gives, I think using these digital tools and using digital printing is fantastic for marketing. I think no one really wants to buy a mug or a pen with a logo anymore. So for you to create a pattern that's especially made for this brand and sort of like it tells that story and people could wear it without looking like a walking, talking commercial is amazing. So, yeah. And this is a thing we did. I made quite a lot of scarves for the European Union. So Ursula von der Leyen and the other guy. Brain freeze. Yeah. So yeah, this was a really big order that we did. It was 50,000 items for the European Union, and they're still wearing it, which is great. So we made some chiffon scarves and ties, handkerchiefs, and bow ties as well. And here's for Omniva. So we made the silk accessories for them. So the print was made out of paper clips. So I think it's another cool idea of how to make something a little bit more quirky, but at the same time you don't see the pattern when it's like this, when it's folded. So that's a really nice thing about textiles, is like when you work on a screen, you see a flat image. So there's like 3 aha moments. First, when you make the print on a screen, it looks cool, then you print it on fabric, then it becomes alive, and then you make it like a product out of it, and then you cut it into, and it forms new shapes from there. And these dresses are for LHV, which is an Estonian bank. They're really cool that they're open to these ideas of creating something. It also goes into the marketing of the brand. It's like you make a bank, which is a very, I say, a conservative brand, and through clothing you make this, you make the personnel more approachable. Yeah. So this is my own ready-to-wear collection. So for the past 8 years, yeah, I've done my own ready-to-wear collection, so twice a year. It's not really a collection, it's just multiple pieces that I make. So yeah, the stuff is, well, the clothing is built on things that are able to sell online. So the cuts are made simple, but what's constantly changing is the pattern. Yeah, so what did I write over there? Yeah, so like I wanted to say, there's a screen over there. So yeah, the digital printing process has been really a lifesaver for me, because I can make these small quantities of, well, we do buy bigger rolls, but in larger scale, it's really small quantities. Yeah, you can make some really cool stuff and without taking a big risk. So let's say if I order 100 meters of fabric, I'll make probably 60, 70 bomber jackets. It's not the end of the world. If I have to wear those 60, 70 bomber jackets for the rest of my life, it's okay. And I've also found that making something that's quite unique will always find a customer. Yeah, you just have to be in the right place at the right time. So coming back to the digital tools in terms of marketing as well, why we sell direct to consumer is that you have a lot broader audience. So if you make something that's quite unique, you want to be accessible to a larger audience. So we don't really do, we want to less sell through stores, but more through the online platforms. Yeah, so we've made leggings, shirts, jumpers, caps, everything you can make out of textiles. And then this is not printing, but I also wanted to show you something why do I call myself a surface designer? Because I'm just not working with print, but I'm also working with knitting and weaving and hand tufting. So this is also something, a challenge for myself, because since I've worked with clothing for quite a while, I wanted to try something a little different. It was also a challenge for me because I think if you work with print, you don't have to think about repeats, you don't have to think about how many colors you use, because you can endless amount of colors, and usually it's really easy to get trapped into this idea of I can do anything. So with home, you have to pull yourself a little bit back, have a color scheme that's a bit more accessible, that's easier on the eye. Yeah, you'll see what I mean. So here's a selection of rugs that I made. These are all made in Estonia. So the prints I always make digitally. So I usually draw on Procreate, and then we transfer them over into Illustrator, because these things have to be done in a vector format. Yeah, we did some sofas, some more rugs, lampshades. Pretty much I'll smash print on to anything you can possibly imagine. So this is also some of the stuff that I've done. Yeah, so like I said, digital printing gives the designer the liberty to create their own unique visual identity, and this is really quite fantastic for me because, yeah, I don't have any, nothing's going to stop me from producing what I want to produce. So I think the classical printing techniques do have a lot of limitations when it comes to color and shape. And teaching. Yeah, for the last 5 years I've been teaching workshops, but also at the Estonian Academy of Arts. And through this process I've really learned a lot also for myself, and because of these companies that were here before that also produce on smaller quantities, what we have right now is really good in terms of teaching this thing, of making patterns, but also we can print on garments, which is really the thing that didn't really exist when I was studying. So yeah, with my students as well, that I always teach them to have a commercial platform, but also a artistic one. Yeah, and teaching also really requires a comprehensive understanding of the subject. So if you don't know something, you make sure that the next time someone asks you that question, you'll be on top of the game. Here's some of my students' work. Aren't they great? This is how they present it. So usually we do like, there's two collections. One is like so this year we decided to do a commercial. So that was inspired by spring-summer collections. They pick a trend and then they make patterns using the color schemes of that trend. Then they had their own artistic interpretation. They found a brand and they will make pattern for that specific brand. I'll be done very soon, I promise. Most of you do work with digital tools and printing, so I don't have to convince you why it's good. But here are just some of the key features that I've written down why it's been good. So yeah, high resolution, flexibility, and fine patterns. really you can use your photos, you can use your children's artwork, you can go wild in terms of what you want to use on your prints. Low production costs compared to setting up massive machinery. So you can produce stuff at a small quantity, so you don't have to take a big risk. And that's great. And I really hope that with these digital options that we have available now, that more smaller brands come to life, because I think, I know that within the next 5 years, there's going to be quite big legislative changes in terms of the textile and fashion industry. So I think hopefully this will give leadway to smaller brands to come onto the market as well. Low sample costs. You can make a sample really quickly to see if it works. Fast sampling and short delivery times. Unlimited repeat size is also great for textile designers. And low capital investment. That's great, because when I started my brand, I had some money, but it was not a massive amount like you would normally need. So you can make stuff really cool using very little funds. Just a little text. Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop are used as an industry standard, and this is what they use everywhere. Procreate is now also coming in, because that's a very easy tool to use an iPad for drawing, and this is what I mostly use. But now for this year's collection, I use a lot of hand-painted watercolors to have that extra edge of something handmade, combining handmade and digital. So I think this is what I see from my students as well, is that if you use digital tools, you want to take all the advantages, all the opportunities that digital tools have, but at the core of printmaking is still the creativity that you have in yourself. And I think having hand skills with drawing and painting is still very crucial. That's it. Okay, do you have questions? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on exploitative generative AI and the market force operation?
I mean, that is already happening. It's been.
Do you think it will be like a bubble which will burst after the regulations?
I think it will have an opposite effect eventually. I think right now everyone's crazy about ChatGPT and all these tools that we can use, but I think it will go back into this, that people want to have human-wrote text, human-made prints. Yes, definitely, maybe these sort of boring printmaking will disappear, because that was going to be done by AI. But I think the legislation hasn't been caught up with regulating how to use what's it called? Intellectual property. We'll see.
I mean, do you think it will, similar to your work, will become a novelty, or will it have
I think
a broader market share?
It's hard to tell. I think it's really early stages. I see that some of the agents actually use OpenAI already for printmaking. But it's really obvious. I don't know if you've seen any commercials with ads. It's really quite awful. And I think people notice this. And I think it's actually damaging for the brand rather than adding something new.
And even if it's looks good, it still lacks the touch.
Yeah. I think this is why it's really crucial to draw something by hand, because this is something that OpenAI could never replicate. Any more questions? Yeah.
You showed your previous work with Omniva, where you made a print of paper clip.
Yeah.
What's the funniest or weirdest thing you've made into a pattern?
Okay. I think I don't have a photo of this, but I had a client. They wanted to celebrate. They made huge profits, and they wanted, because they have this very broad. They did windmills, did startups, they had all these different companies, and they were I was oh, I'll make something abstract. They were no, I want you to draw all these things separately and combine them in a pattern. And I was well, I'll try my best. But they seemed happy, and sometimes I had another, it's a funny story, but I'll keep it short. I had a customer from Hong Kong, and she's a wife of quite a wealthy man, and she wanted to start her own fashion line. And she approached me, and she was like, oh, I really saw a gap in the market. You know when you're on your yacht, and you want to go straight into the city, you have nothing to wear. And I was like, get that all the time. And yeah, so we made kaftans out of butterflies and stuff like this. Yeah. But yeah, as a designer, I think this is also a valuable skill to have, to make something that maybe you would not do. It just challenges yourself as well.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
For your own, for your own collection, or when you get questions from customers, are they taking, or are you taking care of some certifications like UPS or?
With the companies that we work with, they have certificates, yeah, and we trust them in this regard. When it comes to organic or what sort of pigments that they use, they all use the Ecotex. Yeah. So we trust them to do the right thing. But yeah, the companies that we work with are really reliable. If there's any producers over here, I would like to see more fibers being used. Right, this year we're using a lot of tencel and linen in our collection, but I think a problem with sustainability is that there's monocultures of polyester and cotton that use, so it's 85% of the production. We have fantastic materials that are close by over here that we could use. I hope that this will be more accessible for small designers to print on as well. I'm looking heavier walls, heavier tencils. Tencil is something that I'm using this year. Just a broader option of fibers that will be available.
And do you see a growing demand?
100%, yeah. I see a growing demand, and especially for smaller producers, because they do have access to markets. So old companies, they're very big companies, they have shareholders. So they don't take any risks. So smaller companies do have a bit more leverage in this regard. We're doing pretty good, and I hope that this continues. And I do see a demand for it. I think customers are more aware of what they're wearing. So I think we had a revolution with food, and we want to know where our food comes from. I think it's going to be the same for textiles. There's another question over there.
Is there difference between PDF file and vector format for?
I don't really use vector format. Vector format is good for silkscreen printing, and vector is something if you want to stretch something into a really big thing. But when you print on fabric, the resolution doesn't need to be that high, so it can be.
So even the picture that is scanned is
Mm-hmm.
possible to.
Yeah. I mean, I do this with my workshop students all the time. They sometimes come in with their children's paint drawings, and we even a photo with the phone. Even with the photo with the phone would be fine. So yeah.
What about the stretching system? Because with digital print, it's.
Can we ask you to speak in the microphone?
With digital printing now, yes, I think the technology has become so much better now. Depending how, if it's like you saw those leggings over there, the color really stays really well on these. Well, you have to test it out, how much stretch can there be, but I don't think it's a problem anymore. Even like thicker cotton jerseys, you can stretch them out. It doesn't get, usually it gets a little lighter, but I think it's fine. Yeah, but also, for customers as well, it's like it can't be, wrinkles are fine, fabric stretch, it's fine when it becomes lighter, I think, yeah. Anyone else? There was enough talking. Okay, yeah.
From where you order?
So we have multiple silks. We have a factory that we work in Italy. For jerseys, we have a Polish company. It really depends. And they now do tencel as well. So we want to get closer and closer, but it really depends on the variety of fabrics that are available to us. And also the pricing. I mean, Italy has some fantastic fabrics that have a really good drop and drape. But I think for the price range that I sell my stuff, it's really not viable. But we'll see. Maybe in the future there will be more more fabrics for better prices. But it's fine. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.